All right, we'll wait just maybe about 15 more seconds to just allow as many people as possible to jump on before we get started. It's hard to believe the conference is next week, begins next Wednesday. Can't believe it's already here or almost here. It's not even March yet, but it will be.
So close.
Yeah.
Happy Leap Year Day. Great to see you. And we're going to record this. So
Yes,
you're
it
not
is
late.
being recorded. All right, it's 1:01 or 2:01, depending on which time zone you're in. Half of us are Central, half of us are Eastern. So welcome from wherever you are. Welcome to the Episcopal Parish Network first time attendee webinar. And I am going to ask Abby Moon to kick us off with a prayer.
Just to say welcome again. The Lord be with you.
Also,
Let us
And
pray.
also with you.
God of welcome, God who welcomes stretches of our sense of self and creating space for others, we change who we are. May we have been welcomed, become ever more ourselves in the welcoming of others for our vulnerable, unchangeable humanity and something closer to divine. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Abby. Appreciate that. I'm just going to quickly introduce myself. I am Karen Kraycirik. I am one of this year's conference planning committee co-chairs alongside the Reverend Stephen Lee, who works at St. John the Divine in New York. I am here at Christ Church Cathedral in Houston. And Houston is the host city this year. The Diocese of Texas is the host, and we will be hosting conference worship here at the cathedral. So excited to welcome everybody. I'm going to let my co-hosts on this webinar go around and introduce themselves. As they do that, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat so that those who are watching know who else is maybe coming to the conference, maybe find friends or find people you'd like to meet. So go ahead and put your name and church in the chat while I ask Abby to go ahead and introduce herself.
My name is Abby Moon. I am a priest at Trinity Church in the city of Boston, right on Copley Square. I'm the senior associate, and I am on the planning committee for the Episcopal Parish Network Conference this year. And I've been attending for quite a few years, and I don't remember when my first one was, but I'm delighted for each of you. My first experience was a lot of fun as I came in a group, but ended up going to a lot of things all on my own. So I look forward to sharing the insights about groups and going solo at the same time. Adam, would you go next?
Thanks, Abby. Hi, Adam MacDonald, and I'll offer my thanks and welcome to you. I serve on the planning committee. It's my 4th year, and next year I will co-chair with Karen, which is exciting. More so maybe for me than for her. But I just want to say that I think we've planned a really good conference, but what's going to make it great is you all. It's so exciting to meet new folks and to meet our folks. So please introduce yourselves. We will have a lot of opportunity in passing and in downtime, and it would be great to meet you. So thanks so much for being here today. I am the Director of Development at St. Thomas Church and 5th Avenue here in New York City. My 5th conference overall, my first was in Boston in, I think, 19, right? Yeah, which was great. That was the sort of first year of kind of a new era, and it was a wonderful experience. So I look forward to sharing it with you. And thanks for being here today, Peggy.
Hi, my name is Peggy Lowe, and I am the rector at St. Albans in Austin, here in Texas. I'm glad to have you all join us in Texas. Check the weather, it changes constantly. I am the incoming board president for the Episcopal Parish Network. My first conference was also in Boston. As the board intern, Adam spoke of changes. That was the year that we talked about we had to develop a new strategic narrative and talked about the network being here for everyone to equip, to connect, and to diversify, and to think about what it means to be a changing church in a changing world. And so really glad to be here, to welcome you all to Texas, and also it's been fun. I started coming as a board intern, as I said, back in seminary, and so it's been fun and interesting to go through and experience the conference as a seminarian, as an associate, and now as a rector. So lots to learn and take away from, and lots of folks to connect with. As I mentioned, I'm the incoming president for the board of directors. There's a couple of different groups of folks that you can walk up to and ask for help if you have any questions at the conference. We'll all have little ribbons, and so and with different colors and whatnot, and it'll tell you, who's on the board, who's on the planning committee, who's on Bishop McCann. The board is let's see how to describe it. The board works with Joe, not just on the conference, but sort of overall, with the name change in the last couple of years, with the change in strategy, and what does it mean, as the church and the world evolves, what does it mean to be this network of parishes, and not just, and of both clergy and lay leaders, because they're a huge, important part of how we do and how we are church. And so thinking about the strategy of the network and webinars and other things that we might do in between conferences. And this is part of a shift a couple of years ago to being a conference with an organization, to an organization being a conference. And so if you have ideas for webinars and all those things and other things, resources you'd like to see that might be helpful to you, let me know, and or let folks on the board know, and we'd be happy to think about that. The planning committee are amazing. It's an amazing group of people who've worked really hard to put this conference together. They know all the ins and outs, and they're ready to jump in, and they'll start planning the next one at the end of this one. So they've worked really hard to put this on, and so we are all so extremely grateful for their love and their efforts and their care and thinking about topics and speakers and everything. And the last group of folks who will be helpful is Bishop McCann. It's very confusing. They're not associated with any diocese. I think the first year we used them, people were like, where's Bishop McCann the bishop of? And we had to be very clear that it just happens to be the name of the company. And they usually have, I think last year they wore blue polos, and so they'll be really distinctive, and you can ask them for directions, and signage is not clear. If anything on the schedule is not clear, feel free to ask them for help. Again, feel free to ask the board of directors, the planning committee, Bishop McCann. We're all happy to help. And if we can't help, we will find somebody who can help answer the question. And also, if you have any feedback throughout the conference, let us know so we can do something while we're there. Or as I mentioned, the planning committee starts planning the next conference at the end of this one. And so that will just help us have really real-time feedback and thinking about what we do and how we do it. So Abby, to you about first-timer basics and housekeeping.
Thanks, Peggy. So I get to share sort of the what to bring and what to wear. You want to show up with all the right things and tools in your backpack. You don't have to have a backpack, but essentially you're arriving to a conference. Bring the things that are going to be the best resources for you to keep the information that you're going to receive, both from keynote speakers and workshops, auditorily, but also from resources at the exhibit hall. So bring a computer if that's the medium with which you want to take those notes and keep up to date and connected. Pen and paper if that's your favorite way. Business cards. The gift of this conference is meeting new friends, connecting along with colleagues, or finding programs that, I want to know more. It's helpful just to swap a business card or somehow share your information. I know some might go, business cards are a little archaic. It is also a really great thing to be able to share quickly. And any materials or paraphernalia that you might have for curriculum or resources that is vibrant and flourishing at your own space that you might end up storytelling about and want to share that information with others around you. What to wear? I always hate showing up with not fitting exactly, but the key to this is it's business casual. And you want to be comfortable. We will be in lecture style. We will be in round table meeting spaces. We will be getting lunch. The idea here is it's a big conference center. we are not in control of our own climate zones. So bring a sweater if you are cold natured, and it is Texas. They do have air conditioning. I live in Boston, which means air conditioning is not even thought about until July. And then we all wish we have it and we don't. Bring a jacket or a sweater, and it's all about layers, be comfortable. Have your walking shoes. I would say shoes that you bring, please make sure you are able to go conference center space to another, but also from hotel to the meeting spaces themselves. We all have our weather apps. Check it. It's going to be the most helpful right on as you're looking forward. And of course, weather just changes, but we'll be mostly inside. One of the hotels has a pool. If it's yours, bring your bathing suit. If you don't have a pool at your hotel, I would say leave your suit at home. And then Karen's going to talk a little bit more about things on the ground once you get to the airport.
There's a good question in the chat, and so this is a great time to say, if you have questions throughout, go ahead and put them in the chat. There will be a Q&A later on in this session, once we kind of get through some of these nuts and bolts. But Peggy and Abby, clericals or no clericals? Do you bring your collar or do you not?
I think that is personal preference. Typically, I do not wear my collar at EPN. Peggy?
And typically I do wear my collar, and part of that is because there aren't a huge number of Asian American women priests in the church, and it's nice to show that there are some.
And
There's also a question about jeans. Jeans are fine. Jeans are great.
Texas. I think that goes straight into
That actually is a great lead-in to what I was going to let people know. So it's a special time here in Houston. We are in the midst of the Houston Rodeo. It started last weekend and runs through March 17th. So if you've never been to Texas, you've picked a great time to come. I'm going to put in the chat the link to the Houston Rodeo website. They're open from 8 a.m. to midnight every day. Think fried food, think carnivals, think barn animals, think concerts, think wine garden, think whatever. It's here, and it's an Uber ride away from the conference center. I'm not telling you to skip the conference to go to the rodeo, but there are some gaps of time. There are some evenings on your own, and so and there's a big, huge concert schedule, which you do have to buy tickets to. So just throwing it out there, because you'll be in Houston during rodeo time, jeans are 100% appropriate. You will see people in cowboy boots. You will see people in cowboy hats. It is very much a thing. And the timing is great. So yeah, go to the website, check it out. Definitely, if you've never been to Texas, it's definitely a sight to see. Okay, I'm going to transition into a couple of things to consider about Houston itself. Uber, Lyft, they are your friends if you are not renting a car. Several people who live in Texas will probably drive here if you're coming from San Antonio or Austin or even Dallas, or other parts of this, certain parts of the state, not people from El Paso, they would fly. But we are very much a driving state and a driving city. Houston does have public transportation, but it's primarily focused downtown, which is not where the conference is. So make sure you've got your Uber, your Lyft apps up to date. Taxis are also available, though I have not used one in a very long time. But once you get to the conference hotel, most of the conference, with the exception of Friday afternoon, will be in or around the Galleria, which is it's a mall. We'll talk about that in a second. But you won't need transportation to participate in the conference itself. But getting to and from the airport, if you want to go explore things like the rodeo, you would need to either rent a car or do an Uber or Lyft. You would not want to rely on public transportation. It can get you there, but it's not like Boston. It's not like New York. It's not efficient or fast. It would take a lot longer than you would probably like. Abby mentioned earlier the need to bring walking shoes. The conference itself is spread between two hotels. The Westin, hang on, sorry. the Weston Oaks and then the Weston Galleria. They are both attached to the same mall, so it can be all inside, but they are in different places. And so you will need to potentially move back and forth from the two, depending on what your schedule is that you've picked out for yourself. The majority of the conference will be in the Weston Oaks, and there will be other sessions and things and workshops in the Weston Galleria. I've got a quick little screen share to show just to sort of give you an idea. There will be there is a map in the app, which we will talk about, but this is the Weston Oaks. This is the primary conference hotel. This is the Weston Galleria. Don't worry, there's plenty of coffee in between, but this is sort of an overlay. This whole section is the Galleria Mall. So just something to keep in mind as you're thinking about moving from place to place. It's also why you'll see a little bit more time in between some of the workshops, is to allow folks to move from one location to the other. Yes, Brian, there's an ice skating rink in the mall also, if you'd like to do that. So, and then length of time to walk from one hotel to the other, depending on your speed. I run, so I walk pretty fast. Takes me about 7 minutes. So I would say give yourself a good 15, 20, especially if you might want to stop at one of the Starbucks. Just there's 3 in between the hotels. There's 3 Starbucks. So caffeine all day. I know, God bless. Okay, and then Houston has 2 main airports. There is Bush Intercontinental, and then there is Houston Hobby. They have different preferred airlines. Not as familiar as, say, like JFK and Newark and LaGuardia, but they are spread out, and it's worth kind of knowing where they are if you are flying into one of them. I've got this other little diagram here. The purple triangle is where the EPN conference is. Bush Intercontinental is up here. It's further north. It takes about 45 to 50 minutes in a car to get from Bush Intercontinental to downtown Houston, where I'm located. And then Houston Hobby, which is down here, it takes about 20 minutes. So worth knowing where you're coming from and giving yourself extra time. Bush Intercontinental IAH is bigger and is more international. So it is a larger airport that I would give yourself more time to navigate TSA. Houston Hobby, smaller, more domestic, and just, again, give yourself good ample time, but keep in mind the additional travel time. All right, Adam, any tips you found most helpful, my friend?
Absolutely, and thank you, Karen. There was a question about first, just about taxi versus Uber, and I can't answer that. So I don't know, Karen, if you have taxi, less expensive, equally reliable.
I pre-Uber and Lyft, I did not like taking taxis. I normally found that I knew more about Houston city streets than the drivers did. Doesn't mean they're unreliable. It's just I've not had great experiences. And Houston is a big place. So it can, if they don't know where they're going or you don't know where they're going, it can add up pretty quickly. So I said, unless I would recommend Uber or Lyft as my primary.
Thank you. Yeah, just a few things to keep in mind. It is intense in a good way, but it's gonna take your energy. So make time for yourself. Think about it, and possibly that means simply scheduling in a nap, or maybe like deciding one of the meals you're not going to sit and be on and talk to the stranger. But we hope that you do talk to lots of strangers, because the best part about the conference is the people. Be flexible. You may get there, your room may not be ready, and I promise you, we want your room to be ready. So just, be flexible and go with it. It will probably take a little bit to get used to. It's the first time that I'm a part of a conference that's in kind of 2 places. So we're all going to figure this out together. And we will have folks in place to help with that, which leads me to ask questions. Do not ever, ever, ever hesitate to ask a question. It was mentioned before, but I'll reiterate that members of the board and members of the planning committee will have little ribbons on their name tags, so that will identify them as someone you maybe could ask a question of. But also the Bishop McCann folks are super helpful, and they are there specifically to answer our questions. I will have lots of questions, so please ask your questions. As well, take a look ahead, plan your day. Be aware of like when the food is available, when it's not. There were a couple times that I thought breakfast went later into the morning than it did. So I was a little hungry. But yeah, definitely, kind of plan ahead. And I think that's it. It's a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. And the days, you'll pack a couple of days into each day. I spent a week in Houston one night, so that will be terrific. And any other tips from anybody here on the screen? All right.
Yeah, I definitely echoed the do it at your own pace. You know yourself well, and know when you're ready to talk to folks and when you're ready to stretch that and push those boundaries a little bit, and make friends.
Mm-hmm. And take the time you need for yourself. I know we've all been there. There's some conferences where I've been to 8 conferences now, and so there's been some where I want to stay out all night and hang out in the lobby and talk to my friends, and then there's others where I'm in bed by 8 o'clock because that's just what I need. So go with what you need, and that's yeah, you know yourself best. I'm going to talk a little bit. There is a conference app that is available. That is through Cvent is the company. And I've got another little screen share that I'm going to show. So you should have, if you registered, it depends on when you registered, but you should have or you will receive a Know Before You Go EPN Annual Conference email. This is the subject line, Know Before You Go. This is the one that I received. I got it last Friday. If you scroll down, further down in the email, there is a section about the mobile app that will help you download the app itself, whether you have Android or Apple. And then you've got an icon that'll appear. This is a screenshot from my phone of the Cvent events icon. There's a couple of steps to make sure you download the right conference to register with the email that you registered for. It'll send you a verification code. You'll log into it. Once you're in, it has a lot of different resources that are available to you. So one thing that's already in the app now is a walking map from between the 2 hotels. So you can start to familiarize yourself with how it's laid out. There is a schedule. You can see all sessions schedule. You can see your own schedule that you registered for. So if you want to go ahead and start looking at that, several of the rooms have already been identified. So if you're a super pre-planner and you want to kind of get to know where things are and what you're planning to expect, then by all means dive into this app as it's available now. And you've got this is an iPhone 8, so don't judge my screenshot. So it might look different on your more sophisticated iPhones or your Androids. But what I also love is there's an attendees. If you go to the little people icon at the bottom, it shows you who all is attending and has already set themselves up. So look, there's Bowie Snodgrass. She's on the planning committee. And so if you want to see if your friend is going, if you want to see other people who maybe are from your area or whatever, it's cool to just scroll through that list and just know who to anticipate. What's also good to know is that through the app will be a way to offer feedback to the planning committee and the board of directors. After each workshop, there may be an opportunity within the app to rate a workshop or to answer a survey. You will also receive an emailed survey either at the conference or immediately following the conference. We do take that feedback into account. We look at it, we analyze it, we look at what people are saying. It is what helps us start to plan the following conference. And as Peggy said earlier, we wait 3 weeks post Houston conference, and then we're planning for 2025. So if you have feedback, especially in real time, the opportunities will be in the app and through email. So do make sure to follow through with those, because we do use them. They are looked at, and we do make adjustments based on how what we hear from folks. So Brian, I'm looking at your question. I don't know if there's a registration packet, like a physical one. You should have received an email that includes all of your information, what you registered for. You can also find your confirmation email of your registration and log in using your confirmation code to the website and look there as well. You can still make changes. But if you download the cEvent app, it's in there. It pre-populates for you once you log in with the email you registered for. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to keep talking about the agenda. So there is an agenda PDF that lives on the conference website that you are welcome to go and download. Couple of things just to point out. We do have some worship options. There'll be morning prayer offered Thursday morning, Friday morning, and Saturday morning. That is in addition to the closing worship, which will be here at Christchurch Cathedral. That will be a Eucharist service. So depending on what your spiritual desires are, we do try to offer robust worship options. It does say on the PDF agenda that there's Compline, but I don't think that's true. That might be a holdover. Yes, I will drop a link to the schedule. I just put a link in the chat to the PDF that I'm looking at. One thing that's new this year that we've added on Friday morning, there's an option to attend a Sunday sermon prep for clergy or lay preachers who are attending the conference but maybe haven't had a chance to dive in to liturgy that week to prepare a sermon. So this was direct feedback we got from folks who attended the conference. They love attending, they love networking, but like, man, when am I going to write my sermon for Sunday? So there is a designated time, 45 minutes on Friday morning, for anyone who'd like to participate in a sermon prep. They will be using the readings for that Sunday. And then what else? Food and beverage options. So we do try to have throughout the conference. There's not usually coffee. There may be sometimes water in the workshop sessions. They like to hide the coffee in the exhibit hall, which I think is a great move. So if you're like, man, where can I just get a free cup of coffee? Go see the exhibit. That's where it's located. Sometimes there's snacks at different times of the day, just because they know that people need a little bit to nibble on. So if you get hungry, maybe ask first. But usually they're at different points of the day. In the where there are breaks in the schedule, so like between workshops, between keynotes, that's sometimes when there's snack time, and they encourage folks to go visit the exhibitors. And like I said, they hide the coffee in there. So go check it out. Receptions that everyone is invited to. So the opening reception in the exhibit hall, the Trinity Church Fellows reception. You may find in your name tag that there are tickets in there. Those are your drink tickets. So hang on to those, or if that's not your thing, give them to other people. But do know that for the receptions, there usually is a drink ticket component, and they would be inside your name tag, like your badge holder. And then there's several options where if you signed up for a particular lunch to register for, so the Episcopal Preaching Foundation lunch, the lunch at St. Martin's, for those designated lunch options that you've specifically registered for, lunch will be provided in those areas. If you have opted for lunch on your own, you can stay in the hotel. You can go outside of the mall. There's lots of additional restaurants and businesses around the Galleria once you go outside the walls that are within walking distance. There's a food court, there's Starbucks. So just again, look at the schedule, plan for your day, know what's on your own, and know what is being provided if you've signed up for it. That's a little bit of a shift for folks in the sense that there used to be, nope, we're not going to talk about this first timers. We're not going to talk about what there used to be. We don't have to.
I thought the same thing.
Yep, yeah. Don't worry about it. Doesn't matter what we used to do. And then buses to the worship service downtown. Also in that know before you go email, there is areas of that list transportation information. So the cathedral is about 7 miles away from the conference center. And so people will need to be bused over here. If you have a car, you're welcome to drive. We do have a parking garage. You're also welcome to Uber if you like, but those buses will run on a specific schedule. They'll run from the hotels to here, the cathedral, and then they will go back. There will not be any deviation from that. So some folks may choose on Friday after worship to stay downtown and have dinner and explore down here. Great idea. I love it. But know that if you do that, you will need to get your own transportation back to the conference hotel. That if you're not on the bus, then you agree to be on your own to move yourself back to the hotel. Can we RSVP to events in the app? I don't know.
I don't think there are events that require RSVP. You could
Mostly
register for
things like
things.
seminary receptions and whatnot, but those
Would have been directly with the seminary. So if you registered, if it's outside of the conference, I don't think there's a way to RSVP for those things.
And in the opening reception, you can just show up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
same with Trinity reception.
Yes. Yep. Excellent. And then Daniel's asking about, do you know daytime exhibitors are able to set up their tables? I don't. I believe it's Wednesday morning is the earliest that they can get in. But I would reach out to the Bishop McCann team or EPN and they'll know more about that. All right, Adam, I think it's time for me to stop talking. Maybe you can talk a little bit.
Right. So I just wanted to offer some insight or clarity on pre-conference versus conference. This is something that I found confusing and my team found very confusing. So if you arrive on Wednesday, the pre-conference is happening, and the pre-conference is something that requires additional registration, but it is a wonderful thing to participate in. There are 9 sort of cohorts, groups of folks who are going through particular areas of interest and study and work. So some of those are exclusive to the people involved, rectors and deans. If you are not a rector and dean, you cannot take the rector and dean, which was a bummer to me. But there are others that are open. The stewardship, it has a cohort. I'm a stewardship professional here at St. Thomas, and it's wonderful. It's like, a lot of times, I don't know that all church staff has the sort of peer support group, and this is what this is. We're sharing ideas and all kinds of different things, and we're doing it together for multiple hours on that Wednesday. Each one concludes with a dinner together, which is a wonderful time for social interaction and continued conversation. But again, you have to register for them ahead, and they are not part of the conference. So think of it as a different module: pre-conference, conference. And the only other thing I would say is that you can, some of those, for instance, stewardship, you can attend, which is an area possibly outside of your particular focus at work. Last year, a director of music from a church in the Northeast and a communications professional attended the stewardship conference, and it was fantastic, both to hear some of their perspectives and for them to understand a little bit more. I had lengthy conversations with them, and I thought that was great. I have taken advantage of different leadership courses or offerings throughout that aren't exactly stewardship, but aren't not. So if there's any questions about that, I would be happy to answer them. And then I wrote down here, go to the dinner. If you go to a pre-conference, go to the dinner. Ask questions, and anything goes, really. Ask questions of your peer group and of the presenters. I know that most presenters are really hoping that people will ask questions, because that is the most fruitful engagement and lively thing. I know that in the planning, and Karen and I have talked about this, Abby and I are working together planning this conference, and we want folks to have something tactile to walk away with, and sometimes that is born out of the questions that you may ask. So please ask questions and sit with people you don't know. It's great always to to be around folks in a different setting that you're working with every day, but get to know some folks that you don't today. That's it. Peggy, do you want to talk about keynote sessions?
Yes. So so there are a couple keynotes sprinkled throughout the days, and you'll see that on the agenda where they are. And I think most of us have probably seen or understand that Bishop Kerr will not be there for his keynote, but there will be a panel talking about the effect and legacy of his time as presiding bishop. And so I think that'll be really interesting. That'll be a really interesting conversation. Keynotes are recorded, and so sometimes I find myself trying to madly scribble notes or whatnot, or wishing my friends that could have seen it. They'll be edited and made available at a later date so that you can always share them with folks or rewatch something. So yeah, I think I answered a question about presiding bishop. And then use this time to continue to network, sit with friends, introduce people to one another as you meet them, and sort of build up your own groups. It's a great time for doing that. Or again, right, like we've said, yourself best. Is that a good time for you to be sitting in a keynote, or do you want to walk around and talk to exhibitors? That's a great time to have some one-on-ones if you have any particular questions you might want to ask that you couldn't ask when there was a crowd there, or when it was harder to talk, or it's taken some time to organize your thoughts. That happens to me a lot. So again, do what you need to do, but it's a great chance I find the keynotes really inspiring, and I think there's a great set of them this year, and I really look forward to the conversations, and I love that they are mostly conversations. So that's a really great thing. In terms of workshop sessions, try to stick with what you've signed up for. Sometimes you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, that looks really great. And some of them we have the room sized for the number of folks who are signed up. So we really appreciate it if you stick with what you've signed up for. And if you move around, be conscious of others who did sign up for that workshop. There are tracks, and I know that sometimes I mix and match workshops between tracks, but just that's something to keep in mind. And also just keep in mind that clergy staff and lay folk from all different size parishes are in the room, and each workshop tries to touch on it. The four of us come from different churches and differently sized churches. Sometimes I know that sometimes I sit in rectors and deans and I'm like, I don't have anywhere close to that many staff as you have. But there is a lot to be learned, sort of, I think we all face some similar problems and challenges regardless of the size. It's just the complexity of running a church and being a church. And today, there are challenges that we share. There are things we can learn from one another. And what I've found is that people are happy to share what they know. Whether they're a speaker, whether they're somebody who's stood up to ask a question or give a comment, people are really we're here because we really I think partly because we really enjoy what we do and we enjoy talking to other people about it. And I really do find that people are happy to talk or ask questions or share questions. And it's a chance to make connections that you continue then after the conference.
Peggy, sorry. I do want to sort of just reiterate what you mentioned about if you want to change workshops, just to Peggy's point, the Bishop McCann, the logistics company, does assign workshop rooms to the workshops based on the number of registrations. So if one workshop got 100 registrations and one workshop got 40, they may be assigned to different sized rooms. So we don't necessarily discourage people from finding the conversation that they think will benefit them the most. If you can, before the conference, go ahead and make those changes in your registration. We encourage that. If you do find yourself in a situation where maybe you made a buddy at the pre-conference and they're going to this other thing because they know the speaker and maybe you're more interested than you were when you read the initial description, that's okay. Just know that there are people who did register for that. And so maybe before taking a seat in that room, maybe stand along the wall, make sure that those who did register do have a place to sit and be there, and then kind of jump in where you can. But we do want people to get the most out of their experience, but know that there are some constraints when you're dealing with finite space. And so the logistics team does have to make decisions pretty early based on what we know about the different registrations. So that kind of goes back to Adam's thing of like, be flexible, right? Like you do you, but be conscientious that other people are also doing them. And so just be considerate in that regard, but definitely do what you feel is best.
All right, Abby.
Awesome.
Versus going with a group.
Yeah. So as we've been sort of driving home the whole way, this conference offers resources and connections and networking all through the entire time that we're there. I have attended as the only person from my church because of schedules, and I wanted to hear the specific speaker. The offerings spoke to me and weren't going to apply to those around me. So I was the only one. And the gift there was, the freeing part of I didn't have to shepherd or make sure anybody else was not lost and managing chaplaining or shepherding that group. And being whimsical sometimes. It doesn't mean you can't be in a group. But the gift of bringing a group, of course, is you have time to share this common knowledge as a group, coming back at those snack times or gathering for dinner to share what will we use, how will we take it home. Some churches will bring groups that are larger than your 8 o'clock service if you have one. And some churches will just have one person attending. And the gift is once we get there, we're all family and we all sort of plop down where we are. The gift is that seat taken? Nope, please join me. My name tag says this. It is actually what I go by, and I'd love to learn your name, where you're coming from, and what you just learned about if you want to share. And if you would like to just sit quietly, my extroverted self will be quiet and be present with you beside you in a keynote speaker too. So it's sort of that opportunity to explore as much as you want, as we keep saying. It's up to you. You get out of the conference what you put into it, and reading each other. The fact that a group, somebody may be done, and you can actually be kind and say, come sit here and I won't talk to you because you look like you might just need a space. I can buffer. But the gift of becoming family in some ways by the end of this, because we have navigated the Galleria and the rodeo days together, some very familiar with that and some less familiar. But the opportunity, again, to listen, the common ground of a desire for God's church to grow in a world that is so hungry for belonging and identity and care and compassion. And our hope is that everything in the conference gives you an opportunity to hear that desire in a different way. So if you're solo and all by yourself, awesome sauce. We're going to see you. And if you're bringing a whole group, we can't wait to welcome the whole group too. And specifically you, that individual in that group, as part of the larger one. So there you have it.
Thanks, Abby. That was great. So we've got about 15 minutes left. Great job, team. We stayed on our timeline. Love it when a plan comes together. And so we are happy to take any questions from those of you who are participating that maybe we didn't answer. So feel free to put those in the chat. There's also the Q&A feature. We did a good job of answering most of them kind of in real time as they came up on the topics we were talking about. But if there's anything else y'all want to know, ask it. As Adam said earlier, ask questions. Always. They're great. Come on, we're not that good, you guys.
But also available by email, and the Bishop McCann Center, all those wonderful emails you're getting, you can totally reply to those and get answers to.
Yeah. Or if you see us at the conference, just ask us. So the know before you go email, it may have been on when it may be dependent on when you registered. I registered it in February, and mine came last Friday, the 23rd at like
Mine
5.
came on Friday too. I just checked when you
So
talked. Went
if
back to my
you-
email and I was like, because I didn't see it on Friday and I'm like, oh, did I miss it? And I Googled. And so I think they probably went out on Friday.
Yeah, so it either went out Friday if you were registered ahead of time. If you've registered since then, I'm not sure if there's a delay, but definitely look for that. It should be coming, or check your spam email. It might be there too. But and you should, I want to say maybe starting tomorrow, you might get daily emails from EPN just about the conference and what to look for. So there's usually good nuggets of information buried in those, or they can organically get you where you need to go to get your questions answered. Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, that's the long and short of it. Let's get ready to rodeo. It's not my first. It's going to be some of yours. So,
I see what you did there.
you see what I did there?
I did, yeah.
Thank you all for coming this afternoon. We hope it was helpful.
Thank you, guys.
See you soon.
Have a
Safe
great
travels.
weekend. We'll see you next week. Travel safe.
Thanks. Is it done?